Hello, today is Monday, April 3rd, 2023. I'm Joe Schmidt from TC2, and this is Staying Connected. There is a lot happening in the world right now, and it's making a lot of people and companies a little anxious. Let's talk about how this uneasiness with the economy, the regulatory environment, and just general business climate is, or maybe it isn't, impacting company mergers, acquisitions, and divestitures. To do that, I'm joined by Deb Boehling, a partner at LB3, and someone who has a pretty good global view of the ICT space, both on the user side and the provider side. Hello, Deb. Welcome back to Staying Connected.
Thanks, Joe. It's great to be back.
Hey, last time you and I talked, we teed up a podcast on M&A, and our colleague Teresa Knutson and we just did a podcast on the TEM space and the M&A activity that's happening in that industry. So what else is happening with ICT M&A?
It's funny, Joe. My colleague Lauren McDonald and I actually refer to mergers, acquisitions, and divestitures as mad events because that's often how you feel, upset with the additional unexpected work. MAD related to ICT contracts comes in two flavors, those in which your company is the acquiring or divested entity and those in which the ICT vendor is.
Okay, so what's been driving you mad lately?
Well, last year, MAD events among ICT vendors were robust. Previously announced divestitures like that of Lumen's EMEA and ILEC assets closed, as did Equinix's and DRT's acquisitions of data centers in Central and South America and across Africa. Global telecoms M&A activity was even more so, particularly in Europe and Asia-Pac, where the largest announced deal was an in-country between Orange and MásMóvil in Spain.
You know, that's a good global perspective, Deb, and I'm sure those activities affect more of our clients than they probably realize. So what's happening in 2023?
ICT vendor MAD events will continue in 2023, more likely with the Goliaths acquiring the Samsons, those smaller, stronger players.
So you mean like T-Mobile's recent announcement that it was acquiring Mint Mobile?
Yes, that's right. There's also SES's announcement of merger talks with Intelsat. In Q1 2023, Packet Fabric and Unitas Global announced a merger. Singtel continued its data center acquisitions, and various in-country or regional players like atNorth continued acquisitions to expand in and beyond their territories. Some commentators see Asia telecoms companies as the most likely targets, particularly where there are 4 or more providers, such as in India, Japan, and Sri Lanka. M&As will likely continue despite increased acquisition, financing cost, and possibly more aggressive regulatory reviews. The Australia Communications Commission's attempt to block the Telstra and TPG spectrum and tower deals for competition concerns, however, didn't dissuade T-Mobile's acquisition of Mint Mobile.
Okay, Deb, divestitures continuing during a recession, that makes sense to me. Companies with weak balance sheets can strengthen them and focus on their primary business and their geographic coverage. But why would acquisitions continue?
Well, businesses' demand for ICT, particularly telecoms, data, broadband, and wireless services, is inelastic. It even continues to grow as businesses focus on automation. For ICT vendor M&A deals that are close to or announced in 2023, enterprise ICT customers need to be prepared.
And how do they do that?
Well, a complete description would take way too long, so I'll give you the big MAD event to-dos.
Okay, have at it.
First, for MAD events among ICT vendors, make sure your contracts provide a right to choose which contract to purchase under post-closing, termination rights if there's a change in control of the vendor that makes the vendor's financial assurances unacceptable, and limits on the vendor's rights to groom the network for dedicated circuits, with proof of the routing when the customer requests.
Okay, those are some things an enterprise customer should do if their vendor has some type of M&A activity. What if the enterprise is spinning out a division or buying another company?
For enterprise ICT customer divestitures, use of the services will fall. Your contract should require or provide a reduction to commitments for MAD events, continued provision of services to the divested entity under your contract for a period of time, Vendor obligations to perform transfers of services quickly and without excuses so that a vested entity's services can more easily be moved from your contract to its contract. For enterprise ICT customer acquisitions, your contract should allow you to choose under which contract to consolidate all of the services post-closing. Whether it's a vendor or an enterprise transaction, how to address these concerns depends on where you are in your relationship or contract with the acquired or acquiring entity.
So RFPs are often the best way to create an environment where you can negotiate killer pricing. Is that the same for commercial terms?
Usually, Joe, that's the perfect time to make sure the clauses discussed are part of the contract you sign, including the terms in the RFP issued. But an announced and not yet closed M&As by ICT vendors may not be the best time for robust competition.
What do you mean?
The to-be-acquired entity should participate independently. In fact, it can't defer until the organization is closed under laws, and it should aggressively compete in new business opportunities. Unfortunately, that hasn't been our experience. The to-be-acquired entity has occasionally declined to or reluctantly participated in an RFP, perhaps because its employees plan to leave the company before closing.
Got it. And that makes sense. I'd probably be distracted too, and not at my best if I worked for one of those companies. Okay, assuming the acquisition has closed and the acquiring enterprise has done the comprehensive comparison of its and the acquired entity's contract, then what?
Okay, well, the acquired entity could either be the vendor acquired the entity or the enterprise acquired the entity. Either way, there are several options. First, choose which contract you want to use for the long term. If there's a relatively short term left in the weaker contract and revenue commitments have been met, let the weaker contract expire and ensure it doesn't auto-renew. We've seen clients caught by auto-renewals. If it has a longer term with unmet commitments, begin work consolidating the contract into a single agreement that includes the 10 clauses I talked about. Also, start negotiating the transfer of services, focusing on the specific services to be transferred and consolidated in the chosen contract.
Hey, Deb, what if the contract term is finished?
You may be one of those fortunate enterprise customers that's at the end of the finished term contract, and you're in a transition period, so your pricing is protected, and you're satisfied with the contract, you just want to extend it. That sounds easy, but it may not be. The acquiring ICT vendor may view the acquired entity's contract as unacceptable, refuse to extend the contract, and insist on an entirely new one on its paper. For the past few years, Lumen has pursued this approach with its Level 3 customers.
Hey, Deb, we are about out of time. Do you have any last thoughts?
Mad activity, grooming of networks, and changing use of vendor services can happen at any time. Enterprise ICT customers need to be prepared, regardless of what 2023 turns out to be.
Okay, thanks, Deb. That was a good global view of ICT supplier activity and really a nice summary of what enterprises can do if they are affected. If you'd like to hear more about the changing ICT landscape, you can contact Deb or me or any of our LB3 and TC2 colleagues by giving us a call or dropping us an email. You can also stay current by subscribing to Staying Connected, by checking out our websites, and by following us on LinkedIn.